All right, it's time to get your week started off right, and what better way to get your week started off than with Faith and Sport on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, 1270 AM Charlotte. We're also broadcasting across Radio Maria, so hello to all of our Radio Maria Radio Network listeners tuning in for this all-new edition of Faith and Sport. We're also streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. I'm Chris, the producer of the show, and coming to you each week to bring you all of Faith and Sport, your host for Faith and Sport, Dr. John Acquaviva.
Thank you, folks, for joining us today, however, wherever, and whenever you're listening to us. This is Faith and Sport. This is where we merge sport and virtue. So if you're interested in how sport relates to Catholic teaching, morality, character building, all those things, this is the show for you. So whether you're an athlete, a parent of an athlete, a grandparent of an athlete, a referee, administrator, this show is for you. Thank you for joining us today here on Carolina Catholic Radio, a co-production of Radio Maria. Brother Chris, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Sounds like the fans are all riled up, too.
They are.
Yeah.
I think it's because not much was going on over the weekend. It's raining right now, and they just need something to be excited about.
That's right.
Good to see you again, brother.
Good to see you, too.
Here's what we're going to do today. We're going to discuss all things sports, including our hit or miss with Carlos Herrera. He's going to join us in 2 minutes. We have weekend headlines, including our little update on the Kentucky Derby, which is going to be part of our conversation with Carlos. You guys are going to you have something to look forward to in that story.
Yeah.
Our guest today is part 2 of Matt Doherty. He's a college basketball player, won the national title with the UNC team. He's a former Division I coach, including UNC, and he's the author of Rebound, From Pain to Passion. He's going to join us in the second half of our show. We got the quick Q&A with Dr. A and Chris's favorite segment of the show, the PGA Golfer of the Week. So, folks, listen, before we move on to Carlos and some other things, I want to let you guys know. In fact, Ed and I talk about this. Carlos and I talk about this. But we never mention to the audience who the patron saint of athletes are, and that is Saint Sebastian. So I want to invoke the prayers of Saint Sebastian for this show, for the producer of the show, Chris, for Carlos and I, when Ed and I are here, to us to have a faith-filled show and us to bring you a good message concerning sport and virtue. Listen, before we get into our conversation with Carlos, I think a lot of people know by now that our show is now supported by Carolina Crawl Space Pros. So living here in the Carolinas, we have a high level of humidity. Boy, we know that, especially come June and for the next several months. And many times a high humidity level in crawl space can cause your beautiful hardwood floors to buckle. So for details on how to get $250 off any work done on your house, go to our website and contact information. Go to my page on Carolina Catholic Radio to find out more information on Carolina Crawl Space Pros. So thank you to Jeff Wolf and the guys at Carolina Crawl Space Pros for sponsoring this show. All right, let's get to our conversation with Carlos Herrera. Here he is right now to have a great conversation.
Lolitos!
Carlos Herrera, how you doing, buddy?
Hi, Dr. Acquaviva. Great to be back. Chris, good to hear your voice and be back on the show. Welcome back as well.
You too.
Yeah, this is good stuff, brother. Chris is in the seat. You're in the seat. I'm in the seat. We're ready to go. Let's have a good chat. So, Lolitos, I mentioned that part of our weekend headlines is going to be the Kentucky Derby. I'm going to talk about the winner and why it was like a long shot and so forth. But, Carlos, speaking of long shots, Chris, you're going to appreciate this story, I think. This is 15 years ago. Carlos and I are at it's called the Derby Party. Each and every year, our mutual friend, Carlos, his name is Charlie. You met Charlie. Charlie's
right,
in
Charlie
studio.
Wilkinson.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Wilkinson's been here a couple times. And him and his brothers, they may or may not have this party as a means to pay that month's rent. And what they do is, right, there's beer, there's food, there's a bouncy house for the kids, and there's always probably a couple hundred people that go in and out of those doors, right? And Carlos and I have been friends with Charlie for literally a couple decades now. Anyway, every year what they do in the basement, they have like a tote board basically saying, here are the odds for today's race. And you could make a wager on the horse, right? Mm-hmm. And you could make a wager on a few horses and so forth. And of course, you know, they're hoping that the favorite comes in and all the people that pick the long shots will allow them to pay the guy or the guys that made the bets, and then they keep, some for the house, right? So Carlos, I think it's safe to say, not really knowing much about horse racing, picks a horse called Giacomo, right? which I loved it because it's a common first name of an Italian man. Carlos picks Giacomo, put $5 on him. Now, Giacomo, not that big of a deal. $5, not that big of a deal. But his odds were 50-1. And guess who won that year's Kentucky Derby? The great Giacomo. Carlos, I wish you could explain how and why you came to pick Giacomo, but I think even 15 years later, you're just like, I just liked his name.
Well, there was a little more thought to it than that. and I agree. I can neither confirm nor deny that there was any kind of sports wagering.
That's right.
And I think it was all for fun or some sort of charity.
That's
likely Charlie's kids or
sending him to college. So
and it was great. I actually love horses, and when I was 11 or 12 years old, I was in Venezuela, and this gentleman who was married to my aunt was a diplomat. I think he was, an ambassador to one of the countries, but he loved horses. So he showed me a betting book, and we did a couple bets, and he showed me how he looked at horses and looked at analyzing the track and whether they were a mudder or a dry runner. It was like stuff that as a 11, 12-year-old I found really intriguing, but didn't realize at all, the importance of it. And I love horses, so I like to wager.
And boy, you hit the jackpot that day. By the way, there's in the history of the Kentucky Derby, by the way, it's close to 150 years. There's only been 2 other horses in the 150-year history, 147 to be precise, that had longer odds than Giacomo and won the Kentucky Derby. In fact, it's amazing to think anybody beyond 50-1 won that race.
I think I ruined Charlie's party that day.
I think it's safe to say.
I'd never been to a party where I got paid to have a good time. That was the first.
I know. In fact, Carlos, there were so many gamblers at that party. I remember guys walking up to you going, how did you know? Like, tell me the secret. Like, how did you know Giacomo was going to win? That's a true story, folks. Carlos won a 50-1 bet, placed $5 on him. And I think that was such a big payday. Carlos, to this day, has yet to spend all that $250. That's what's amazing about that.
Well, it's funny. When we talk about the Kentucky Derby, I'll tell you a little more of my secrets to betting the Kentucky Derby.
I can see it right now. All those gambling problem people out there are going to go, I got to get a pen and paper. Honey, get a pen and paper. Carlos is going to talk about...
I have to do a disclaimer. If you're a gambler and
that's right. That's right. Remember
what the fun, please call 1-800.
That's right. In fact, remember what the Catholic Catechism says about gambling. Carlos, the main reason...
All in moderation.
That's right. All in moderation. And make sure that gambling has no...
legal in the state you're in.
Well, not only that, but make sure that all the monies that you are gambling have no bearing on you taking care of your family, your children, your mortgage, your rent, whatever the case is.
And don't rationalize it that if you win, then you can do that.
Then you can buy pizza for everybody. That's right. Folks, you're listening to Faith and Sport here on Carolina Catholic Radio, also a co-production of Radio Maria. This is where we apply our faith to all aspects of sport. So it doesn't matter how you're involved in sport, even just a fan, this is the show for you. So thank you for joining us today. And by the way, if you ever want to contact Carlos and I, you can contact us at virtually the same address. I'm at John@faithandsportradio.com, and Carlos is at Carlos@faithandsportradio.com. You can also get in touch with us through Carolina Catholic Radio, or if you open up your window and shout real loud, it's quite possible either Carlos and or I will hear you. Los, as always, we talk about our hit or miss of the week. Now, that was your hit in the year 2005 for sure, but what about this week? What was good or bad in the world of sport, brother?
Well, there's so much going on at this point in time during the year. We could talk really about anything. And let me just go back to a couple points. St. Sebastian, phenomenal saint of the day, and he's going to be the saint for our show. We'll probably put some of that information on the website. Used to be in the Roman Legion as an athlete, and he was pierced with arrows, survived, and then he was, I think, beheaded.
That's right.
So I love your guest comment, and I guess title of the book, From Pain to Passion.
Yeah.
I think if you're an athlete or a Christian or just a normal person, I think if you can get used to understanding that life, you go from pain to passion in almost anything. Sports, dedication to, studies to a particular profession to husband and wife to child and father or mother and daughter, everything, if you can summarize it to or bring your reality to understand that everything is difficult and you go from pain to passion to Christian faith. Love that. I think that should also be the moniker for our show. From pain to passion. Anyway, going back to my hit or miss.
Yeah, what was it?
It's really about kind of the Derby sort of struck my chord on this, but considering that the winner of the Derby was an underdog, is this whole fascination with supporting the underdog and how, I think, and I'd love to hear from some listeners, that the underdog is very important to us in sports and many times just stories, right? And a lot of that the core comes from, and I did a little Wikipedia definition where I looked it up, and one of the comments it said, right at the beginning, said, a core of this is American English culture for both in England and now in America. A lot of our culture comes from England, but also the core comes from a Christian Judeo culture stories, right?
Yeah.
The story of David and Goliath.
Yeah.
It's the classic underdog story.
Yep.
Right? So if you happen to be from the Jewish religion, the culture, and us as Christians, we take our history from our Jewish Hebrew brothers, sisters. That story of David and Goliath is probably quintessential to us. And so for me, the Kentucky Derby winner, I think people bet on the underdog, for one, because they like the underdog, and it also pays. Right? Like, the odds are so much better.
That's true. I didn't even think of it from that standpoint. And, of course, we're talking the expert of underdog picking in Giacomo, Carlos Herrera. But, no, Carlos, that's a great thing. In fact, that's what made, for instance, the Nats win against the Houston Astros. They were the mighty Houston Astros. They already had one World Series win. I think it was 2 years before they played them. Yeah, and it just makes every championship win is sweet. But when you do it against the Goliath, it just makes it a little sweeter, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And from pain to passion right there is beating those who you don't expect to beat, and when people think you can't beat them.
Yeah.
And, we have the draft. We have a lot of commentaries on the draft. There's a lot of sort of David and Goliath kind of opportunities where somebody goes up the draft who you didn't think, and then there's the one that the mighty shall fall, and so they go from top positions to lower positions. Happens every year. In almost all sports and all aspects of our life.
Let me ask you this, Carlos. Like, when I think of somebody who is the opposite of the underdog, who's always the favorite, who always seems to come out on top, Tom Brady, and now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he's won 7 Super Bowls. He's been to 9 total. Do you end up, just because of, and I use him as the example, but do you, in your heart, when he plays in the Super Bowl, are you neutral toward it, or do you root for him to win, or because he's the favorite, do you go, I don't care who the underdog is, I'm rooting for them?
I think that's interesting, and that, if we had the opportunity to have a live discussion from our listeners, I would love to hear how many of our listeners, are underdog-oriented or like to go with a strong favorite. And I think from a cultural perspective, we know that the Spartans probably completely did not look favorably upon anybody considered an underdog, and they liked the favorite.
Yeah.
Because in Sparta, it was all about the strong, right?
That's right.
The underdog usually wins as a function of luck or as a function of some sort of, circumstances that kind of create them to have some sort of success where they didn't expect to, right? Hence the Nationals, right? Or Medina this past weekend, right? Medina Spirit.
Yep.
So anyway, I think it'd be interesting to interview, but again, I think because of our Judeo-Christian history, being Americans, and with a lot of English background in us, I think many of us like the underdog story and like to root for the underdog.
You touched on something. In fact, I thought you were going to head down this lane just now, but who was the underdog in the Revolutionary War? By far, in fact. Yeah. In fact, if anybody just looked at a picture of, say, 100 soldiers from Britain and 100 soldiers from America, and you had to make a wager on who was going to win, you would have picked the Brits just because of their sparkling red uniforms, right? I mean, they were organized, they had numbers, they had money behind them, but boy, when you try to take something for something that people think they own, And that's the way it is. That's the one thing you cannot measure. There's all kinds of statistics out there when it comes to war. There's all kinds of statistics when it comes to games. It doesn't matter what the game is. There's 100 statistics that can go with it. But the one thing you cannot see, the intangible, is what's in people's heart. Brother, that was a great hit for the week. I love that. Just a general conversation on the underdog.
And to go back to, and just to belabor this point a little bit more, what was one of the most famous underdog stories? The Miracle on Ice.
That's
the
right.
U.S. against Russia.
That's
the
right.
mighty, powerful, talented Russian hockey team.
And much older, of course. They were professionals. They had been playing together for almost a decade.
Against the amateur U.S. team. I mean, it was phenomenal. That if you watch that, and for a lot of our younger audience, it was one of the most. You have the Cold War background, and everything. It was amazing.
It was. It's one of the
and
greatest.
To go back to also your question on Tom Brady. Tom Brady is an underdog. He's, excuse my expression, not a very mobile white quarterback who was selected in the 7th round.
6th round, but yes.
6th round. See, 6th round. He wasn't a top draft pick, right? He wasn't in the top 5 or 10. He wasn't a Peyton Manning. This particular athlete happened to connect with a particular coach and a particular team at a particular time, and he has excelled. And he is now not considered an underdog, but he was.
He's not at all. At the time,
and
he was.
He's also old. So one of the reasons I rooted for him in the Super Bowl is because he's an underdog. He's the old man.
That's right. In fact,
against the young buck.
That's right. In fact, he's the only. In fact, not the only, but he is the athlete in all of sport that's closest to your and I's age, more than anybody else. So yeah, that's another reason why he should be considered the underdog. But it's going to take at least 2 years out for him being in football for him not to have any, say or big presence in NFL. So, yeah, good stuff, brother, on the from the angle of the underdog. Good stuff. Good conversation. Folks, you are listening to Faith and Sport here on Carolina Catholic Radio, a co-production of Radio Maria. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. Joining me on the line here is Carlos Herrera. He is a certified soccer coach and a former
youth minister.
Youth minister. Youth minister. I stumbled over that a couple weeks ago, and for some reason I keep stumbling over that, brother. But thank you for joining us on the show. Chris Pressler, the producer, he's joined us. Every once in a while you're going to hear his voice. Carlos just had his hit. I have a miss. Mine happens to do with something I've actually talked about a couple times, either with my son Luke's sports team or my daughter Claire's sports team. And this had to do with Luke's baseball team, who last week, Luke plays for the Royals, and they're playing against the Rockies. And the Rockies just got the better of the Royals, my son's team. They ended up winning the game 16-5. If Luke were here, he could correct me, but it was at least a 10-run difference. In fact, it had to be. Otherwise, the story would have very little meaning. What happened in the game is, in this league, in like a lot of leagues, they even do this in high school. If you are ahead by more than 10 runs after a certain amount of innings have been played, the umpire calls the game, and there's a term. I don't think it's official, but there is a term that is associated with this, and they call it the mercy rule. So it's like, have mercy on the other team. Don't embarrass them even more than what the score indicates or what the score is. Just end the game. So after the game was over, both teams, as is pretty common in this little league situation, they'll go out to the respective side of the field, like in the foul territory or in left field, one side, the other side. If there are dugouts on the right field side, they'll come out to the right field or the right field line, whatever. And as the kids were coming out from the Rockies, they're all yelling in unison, mercy, mercy, but they're yelling this really loud. And after about 5 or 6 times of doing this, thankfully, a mom that was not too far from them, near the third baseline or the first baseline, says, "Come on, guys." Doesn't say anything about what they're saying, just says, "Come on, guys." That kind of quieted them a little bit. But the coaches were probably around 20 or 30 steps away. They're putting away equipment, maybe talking to a parent or two. They're talking amongst each other, I noticed as well. And then they started to come out to right field to meet these kids from the Rockies. And as they're yelling mercy, they kind of like restarted this chant, mercy, mercy. The coach comes up, and as he's approaching them, about 4 or 5 steps from him, says, "Come on, guys, that's bad luck." And for that split second, before he said bad luck, I actually thought, good, he's going to call these kids out and he's going to mention that how bad a sportsmanship move this actually is. And I just thought it was a missed opportunity. Now, Carlos and I were talking off, when the mics were off just before the show started, and I gave the coach the benefit of the doubt, and I said, he probably just didn't want to call him out. So he got them to stop by saying it's bad luck. But, of course, luck has nothing to do with it. It was kind of a strange term to use. But by him using the word bad and by him using that expression, the kids knew what he meant. But, Los, you thought it was a missed opportunity and it maybe even bothered you more than it bothered me. What are your thoughts?
Well, as a former coach and having been a coach to youth, the rule, the mercy rule, is also called the slaughter rule.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, so you don't get slaughtered, right?
Yep.
And I got to tell you, this kind of situation, kids learn it from parents, right? You go to a hockey game, right? If you're, it's a shutout to the other team, and the other team is letting in a lot of goals. I mean, they chant all kinds of stuff to the teams, the players. Like I've seen it to the refs. I've been in a soccer stadium and they start calling the ref names, and this stuff drives me crazy. So the kids, I think, learn it from the parents. We seem to give them permission by the way we act. But I did think it was a cop-out from the adults. I think the coach, to say it's bad luck, that was a cop-out. He should have just said, hey, that's not good sportsmanship.
That's right.
That would have done the same thing, would have been far more precise.
That's right.
He would have told them that that's not expected of winners. And there is the saying of not being a sore winner.
That's right.
And I think that's something that, it's too bad that a parent has to say it from the sideline, right? And nothing against a mother, but why can't a man say, hey, sportsmanship, that isn't being a good sportsman.
Right.
Why couldn't, why does the mother, who probably has more empathy, right, and maybe doesn't have the same fear that some fathers don't want to look bad, or I don't know, but I wish more men would stand up and say, that's not right. That's not good sportsmanship.
Absolutely.
And so I think it was a cop-out. Kudos to the mother for saying that. And too bad nobody else kind of chimed in.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Folks, you're listening to Faith and Sport here on Carolina Catholic Radio, a co-production of Radio Maria. We're being joined by former youth minister Carlos Herrera for our hit and miss and all other things sport. Right along those lines, Luke's team has been actually beaten a couple times by these guys. In fact, I think they had at least one other mercy rule or slaughter rule implemented. But it was neat. The other day they won for the first time in like 9 games. So they had like a 9-game losing streak. And Carlos, and I know you've experienced this as an athlete, but as a coach as well, maybe not 9 games in a row, but it was really tough. Luke, one day, literally, we're over dinner. We're all eating dinner. We're having conversation. And Luke, in the midst of this losing streak, says, I don't know if we're ever going to win another game. And it was totally random because we weren't talking about his baseball team. We weren't talking about any sports at all, but he was really bummed out. But the reason, this is the flip side of that miss, when they won the other day and they won against the first place team, the Orioles, the joy on the looks of those kids' faces and the coaches even, they were like, if you took a picture of them, you could underneath just title that photo, The Joy of Winning. And yeah, and the good thing was they weren't being bad sports about it. They weren't saying anything to the other team, and they weren't even flaunting the win even amongst themselves. There was just joy on their faces and the relief that I think everybody felt. And I think that's one of the neat things about sport is that there's redemption, there is a comeback aspect to it, like there's always literally tomorrow. And if you asked Luke that day, how's the season going? He would have said, it's going great, even though they were like 2-10 at the time. Isn't that neat?
It is the beauty of, I think it is sports, right? Like you, on any given day, you can win, especially if you've been on a losing team. If you're on a team that always wins, and they say this, you learn more from losing than you do from winning.
That's right.
Right? And
right.
Perseverance and dealing with failure is probably a lesson that more kids and adults need to learn, and that it's okay to fail. And I think athletes have a better time at coping with life because you fail all the time.
That's right.
And that's the only way you get better, really.
That's right.
And so it teaches you more. Anyway, I love this story, and the good thing for our listeners is you and I are fathers of 2 young kids. Well, you're father for a lot of young kids.
That's right.
Most of the people don't know this, I am having a second with my wife being pregnant, so hopefully that will work out.
Yep.
But we'll be coaching our kids and watching our kids in sports, and we'll have all sorts of firsthand anecdotal stories that we can share with people.
Absolutely. Well, brother, we got to move on to our next segment. Listen, as you know, we had a lot more things to talk about. Maybe we'll get them to next time. But as always, either way, we had a good conversation. Carlos Herrera, remember, he was the one who chose Giacomo more than anybody else. This is on the air, and this is makes it official. Brother, thank you, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks for having me on. And to our listeners, I did say that I was going to give you hints on how I bet the race.
So
this is my hint.
Let's hear it.
Bet the jockeys that win the most, like John Velasquez and Mike Smith or Calvin Burrell, and bet the horse managers that win the most.
There you go.
Stafford, never bet against him.
There you go. There you go, folks. Carlos Herrera Lolita joins us just about each and every week for our hit and miss. Brother, you have a good week. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. Have a great show.
All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do our weekend headlines. Right after that, be sure to join us after the break. Matt Doherty, he was an All-American in high school. He went to UNC, won a national championship with them. He was a teammate of Michael Jordan, and he is the author of the book Rebound, From Pain to Passion. He's going to join us for the second half of the show. But before that, Chris, we're going to do weekend headlines. Brother, give me some music.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat. The human drama of athletic competition.
It's time for Weekend Headlines with Dr. John Acquaviva on Faith and Sport.
So here we go, folks. In the PGA, 24-year-old American Sam Burns shot a 3-under in the final round to win the Valspar Championship over the weekend. The Wells Fargo Championship here in North Carolina, here in Charlotte, begins later this week. The Kentucky Derby, as we just mentioned, Medina Spirit won the 147th running for the Roses. At a relative long shot at 12-1 and not a big horse physically, he still came out on top. The big story is that the owner paid just $35,000 for him, considered cheap when others pay up to $1 million for a foal. So congrats to Medina Spirit. In the NFL, the draft took place in the latter part of last week and over the weekend. To no one's surprise, Clemson QB Trevor Lawrence was selected number 1 by the Jacksonville Jaguars. In Major League Baseball, bad news for both Chris and I, being Atlanta Braves fans and Detroit Tiger fans. They are not at the top regarding the best records in MLB. It's the Milwaukee Brewers and the San Francisco Giants are both 17-11 and tied for the best record in the bigs. Both are surprises, but it's probably not projected to stay that way since we have over 130 games to play for everybody. So we'll see what happens. So there you have it, folks. Sports news that may or may not change your life. So listen, we're going to go into the break. Stay tuned for author, former D1 coach and player Matt Doherty. This is Faith in Sport, folks. I'm going to hand it over to Chris. Enjoy the break.
You are listening to Faith and Sport on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network on 1270 AM Charlotte Carolina Catholic Radio. Also streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. We're also broadcasting across Radio Maria, so all of you Radio Maria listeners, stay tuned. We've got more Faith and Sport coming up right after the break. And remember, if you can't get enough Faith and Sport, check out Faith and Sport on demand at carolinacatholicradio.org.
The Carolina Catholic Video on Demand section is now available with over 40 video segments from our 12-hour virtual conference held on September 12th. You'll find it under the On Demand tab at carolinacatholicradio.org.
Holy Angels of Belmont is a place unlike any other. You have the unique opportunity to bring your heart to work each and every day as you work with the residents and participants we serve. So mark your calendar for Friday, May 7th from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. for the Holy Angels Job Fair at 6600 Wilkinson Boulevard in Belmont with instant interviews and job offers. If you were to visit Holy Angels, you would see love in action at every level of the organization, all to benefit the children and adults we serve. On a daily basis, each staff member provides loving care for the residents, helping each one reach their highest potential. So don't miss the Holy Angels Job Fair, Friday, May 7th from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. at 6600 Wilkinson Boulevard in Belmont with instant interviews and job offers. For more information, log on to www.holyangelsnc.org/careers. Holy Angels of Belmont. It's not just a job, it's a mission.
Teachers that care, professors that care about you. Just an awesome experience all around.
There's peace here. There's encouragement here.
Faculty, everybody that works here, they really set you up for success.
I don't think I have ever felt as loved and as supported and as encouraged as I have at the Abbey.
There's something here that's underlying and intrinsic. There's like a spirit of love and community. And I think the spirit is God's presence here.
Belmont Abbey College, a world away, but close to home. Visit us at belmontabbeycollege.edu.
Hello, Carolina Catholic family. As a result of this past year's extraordinary events, tithing, donations, and monthly pledges came to a complete halt. This put us in a severe cash crunch to pay our monthly bills. The reality is that without your immediate financial support, this apostolate will cease to exist. Over the past 2+ years, Carolina Catholic has expanded its local lineup with 7 new programs heard every day at 5 p.m. We also feature Carolina Catholic afternoons that start with 1 p.m. Mass from St. Mark and conclude at 4 p.m. with the Clergy Corner and Homily of the Day. All programs are available as podcasts on both our website and mobile app. When last September's Eucharistic Congress was canceled, it was Carolina Catholic who stepped up with a 12-hour, 6-platform virtual fall conference. Upon completion, we committed to continue operating across all 6 media platforms. As a 100% listener-supported 501c3 nonprofit, Carolina Catholic needs your financial support now to continue operations. Please make your pledge to donate today and pray for the success of this campaign. God bless you.
And we are back for more Faith and Sport on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, 1270 AM Charlotte. We're also streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. And welcome back to all of our Radio Maria listeners listening on the Radio Maria Radio Network. I'm Chris, the producer, and once again, here he is, the incomparable, the one, the only. You know him as Dr. John Acquaviva.
That's funny, Chris. My mom knows me as that as well, so I think everybody knows me as Dr. Acquaviva.
I just want to make sure that they know which Dr. John Acquaviva we're talking about.
That's right. They might get me confused with the other Dr. John Acquaviva from down the street.
Yeah.
Folks, joining me in 1 minute is Matt Doherty, national champ at the college level. He's been a Division I coach. He's also the author of Rebound, From Pain to Passion. He's going to join us just in 1 minute. Chris, we just got done doing the weekend headlines. And by the way, toward the end of the show, after our little segment with Matt Doherty, we're going to do Chris's favorite segment, which is called PGA Golfer of the Week. But, brother, I think we're going to have a new segment, which is called the NASCAR Race of the Week.
Yeah.
What was the name of the NASCAR race from this past weekend?
Well, it was called the Bushy McBush Race 400 in Kansas. And As everyone knows, most of you know, the winner of that race was Kyle Busch, the winner of the Bushy McBush race.
And Chris, that was totally coincidental, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Listen, did you ever, when you're a kid and you play these games where like you say something, you have one word to say or one segment to say to try to make the other person laugh? From now on, mine's going to be the Bushy McBush forum.
I just like to know who comes up with the names for these
I
races.
know, Bushy McBush. That is awesome. All right, listen, serious business now. We got a really neat guest and fairly serious guy. He's done all kinds of great stuff. He doesn't want to hear about Bushy McBush stuff.
No.
Listen, folks, you probably already know that Faith in Sport is now supported by Carolina Crawl Space Pros. Did you know insects are drawn to moisture? Moist wood is easier for insects like termites to bore through. Just like water, they go to the easiest path of resistance. Dry your home with Carolina Crawl Space Pro system and protect the health of your home. For details on how to get $250 off, go to our website and contact info. Go to my page on Carolina Catholic Radio. That's Carolina Crawl Space Pros. On the line with me right now is Matt Doherty. He's a national basketball champ. He's a former Division I coach, including at UNC and Notre Dame. And his book, Rebound, From Pain to Passion, is primarily what we're going to talk about. Let's welcome to the show right now, Matt Doherty. Welcome back to the program, bud.
Thank you. I'm a little disappointed, Dr. John.
But
I thought it was Acquaviva. I didn't know it was Acquaviva. But anyway, I'm a little disappointed there's no fake hand clapping in the background, Chris.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Did we do that? Okay, let's do that again. Chris, now welcome to the show, Coach Matt Doherty. There you go.
There you go. The fans
Thanks, Chris.
were very responsive.
That's the least you can do, Chris.
That's right. That's right.
And I had to listen about the Bushy McBush and everything else. At least I get a fake clap, okay? Thank you.
Hey, Matt, let me ask you, okay, regarding the clap, in fact, made me just think of this. What do you miss? What do you think about more, I should say, or maybe even miss? You could answer them both. Do you miss coaching, at the big level or playing at the big level? Or maybe that's not even a fair question.
Play.
Okay,
I mean, coaching's a distant second.
Got
Playing's
it.
the best.
Yeah, no, playing is,
the best. You don't have to worry about curfews and, I just have to worry about, getting on the bus at the right time playing's the best. Nothing better than playing college basketball.
But, Coach, let me ask you this then, because I could easily kind of like muster up why it would be such a nerve-wracking thing. But is it because in a way that the pressure is on the coach and the coaching staff and the pressure's not necessarily on you? Or is it safe to say you played in a national championship game? You won the national championship. Is it safe to say that you're just not quite old enough to really grasp exactly how big that moment is?
No, I think you're old enough. You'd probably be more nervous at 18, 19, 20 than you would be at, 35, or like if you're in the NBA.
Yeah,
I don't think they get as nervous as a high school, college player. But there's pressure. I mean, tell me about it. I was at the foul line with 1:30 to go, and we had a 1-point lead, and I missed a shot, and they went down and scored, and that set up Michael Jordan's game-winning shot. I was so unselfish, I missed that foul shot on purpose, but it's the kind of guy I am.
That's right.
It is very it's nerve-wracking. It's just more fun to play than coach. I mean, you're out there playing, it's a real joy. Coaching is kind of a constant misery with interrupted by joy, but mostly misery.
Listen, brother, I listen to you regularly here on WBT Radio, and I think you're terrific. I think you got a lot of great stuff to say. Listen, rather than reaching out to Brett Winterbull and anybody else at WBT, if you ever decide to be on the radio regularly, I want to be on the air with you, brother. Anybody who can, I don't know, just the few things you said there in the last couple of minutes. I want to be on the radio with a guy like that. So listen, promise me that I'll at least be in the mix if you ever want to go on the radio on a regular basis.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, John, I don't even know you. I mean, this is the second time on your show, and, you're killing me, Smalls. I mean, I could probably just say yes just to get you to stop and move on to the next question. Yeah, sure, John. I'll consider you, sure.
I know, Chris. He acted like I asked him to marry me, but it wasn't quite that serious. But no, Matt, I understand what you're saying, brother. Like I said, just put me in the mix, right? Just put me in the mix because I think you got a lot of good things to say, and I just love your, your insight on a lot of stuff. And you're a guy's guy. That's what we want on this show. So I appreciate it, buddy.
I appreciate it. I'm a wise butt from Long Island, and I like to bust chops and have fun and make some laughs, but also talk the truth. And that's important to me.
No, I hear you. Folks, you're listening to Faith and Sport here on Carolina Catholic Radio, a co-production of Radio Maria. We're being joined by author Matt Doherty, former basketball player at the college level, former coach at the college level. His book is Rebound, From Pain to Passion. Now, before we get into that, Matt, the last time you kind of mentioned this toward the end of our conversation, this was one of the reasons I brought you back on the show, was you mentioned that every person, regardless of where they are in life, if there's some type of professional, they would benefit from listening to or attaining a personal board of directors. First of all, tell us what you mean by that and give us an example or two.
Yeah, that term first came to me from a gentleman named Bob Bodine in Dallas, who runs an executive search firm. And got to know Bob pretty well, and he talked about that, and it really made so much sense because you don't want to make key decisions in a vacuum. If you make a decision, sometimes these big decisions can be paralyzing, and you need clarity. Well, where can you go get this clarity? You can get it from your personal board of directors, and that could be an executive coach. I do executive coaching now. I'm a Vistage chair, which is the leading executive coaching organization in the country. Mm-hmm. And, that's what we provide leaders because it can be lonely at the top, and they need some relief from the isolation and a sounding board that is not emotionally tied to the decision that person is making. Otherwise, you can get overwhelmed with the pressure of making a decision and sometimes not looking at it with a lot of clarity that's needed.
Got it. And on your personal board of directors, it would be maybe, or just in general, a person's board of directors, it could be their spouse, right? It could be maybe a parent or just somebody that they really appreciate the opinion of.
Well,
correct?
I think you should have your spouse. It'd probably be a good idea, Dr. John, if you had your spouse on. I'm assuming you're married. Are you married, John?
Oh, absolutely, with 5 kids. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hope your wife's not listening, but if it sounds like she's not on your personal board of directors, and you just got busted. Okay. And so, yeah, my wife is a truth teller. I talk about truth tellers. The people on your board of directors should be truth tellers. There's not enough truth going on in the world. So you need somebody to tell you no. You need somebody that's comfortable, that has the right to say, you're not thinking straight. That's stupid. And make you really, look at a decision in many different places, angles, different perspectives.
Yeah.
So my wife's on the board of my personal board of directors. John Black's a friend of mine in Charlotte. Has been on my board of directors for a long time. And some of these people don't know they're on my personal board of directors, but they're on it.
I know what you mean.
Tim Hofer's a buddy of mine up in the mountains, been a very successful businessman and a college AD. Bob McKillop, the head coach at Davidson, in a Catholic, by the way,
that's right,
is on it. My brother John, who's a private wealth manager at Goldman Sachs. And then sometimes it can bounce back and forth according to the industry I might be, looking into or trying to learn about.
Folks, we're talking to Matt Doherty, author of Rebound, From Pain to Passion. He's talking about the need to have a personal board of directors. Now, I like the fact that, Matt, your list is unofficial. So what I've done since you were chatting there is I'm going to add my name to your personal board of directors. And since it's so unofficial, nobody could really figure out whether that's true or not. How's that?
Well, I just talked about the truth, I'm all about the truth, and now you're trying to fudge a little bit John, what do you have a doctorate in, by the way? I'm getting a little nervous. What's that doctorate all about? And it's legitimate.
Matt, remember, the show's not about me. It's about you, the guest, brother. But no, I appreciate that. In fact, I like the fact that you mentioned my wife, and I mean this in all seriousness. Alicia is a truth teller, and that's one of the reasons I married her. And I realized that. I never heard this term until you were on my show last time. But I remember I was like, I want her on my personal board of directors. In fact, she's my rebound, right? I bounce things off her all the time, and she sets me straight. So I think if nothing else, Matt, you've given us something in there. Listen, let's shift a little bit. You mentioned in your book about setbacks have motivated you to be a better leader. What can the everyday person take from that?
Well, I think the first thing is you always want to improve. The number one goal of any team I coach was to get better today. And if you make a mistake, you want to get better. That's all we can ask of ourselves. That's why, I like playing golf. I want to get better. Yeah. You don't play well, you go to the practice range. You take a lesson. You watch a video. And so in leadership, in life, that's the same thing. If you're making the same mistake over and over again, then you that's shame on you.
That's right.
But you should want to constantly learn. Roy Williams used to talk about, you might be on the right track, but if you're standing still, you're going to get run over. So you just want to continue to learn and grow. I was called a lifelong learner back in 2003, and I never heard that term at that time.
Yeah.
And I really felt that was a heck of a compliment. Because I like to read, I like to learn, I like to ask people questions, people that have interesting careers. Why did you do that? What's the biggest challenge? And so as an executive coach, I have people that are in different industries, and I love to learn about their industries.
Yeah.
How do they make money? What's the key to their business?
Yeah.
And you're always learning, and that makes it for an exciting day.
No doubt. In fact, what you just said, I think this is a different way to explain it. But I remember a nun at my high school in Detroit. She said, "You have one mouth and two ears. You should listen twice as much as you talk." And I appreciate that about what you just said, because we already know what we know, but the only way we can find out what the other person knows is by asking them. But I agree that that it's a compliment, first of all, if somebody said that, but also I think to a degree it's a lost art. Don't you think that just listening is a lost art?
Yeah, no question. And you have to be, I call it being an aggressive listener. You need to really be active.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? Well, it means mirroring the person's body language. It means repeating maybe a key phrase or line that they say. One, that shows them respect. Two, it kind of makes it permanent in your mind, so you can repeat it, and it keeps you present. Because we all got a little ADD, and someone can start talking, and you're starting to think about what you have to do the next hour, or where you're going to lunch, or whatever you're doing the rest of the day. So to stay present is really can be a challenge, but it's really a gift to the other person.
Absolutely.
And by the way, you just might learn something.
Absolutely. Folks, you're listening to Faith and Sport here on Carolina Catholic Radio, a co-production of Radio Maria. This is where we merge sport and virtue. Our guest today is Matt Doherty, former national champ at the college level, former Division I coach, including at UNC, Chapel Hill, and Notre Dame, and author of the book Rebound, From Pain to Passion. Matt, I'm going to leave you with this. You mentioned executive coaching a few minutes ago, and you've probably over the years gotten people's attention from, what you've accomplished on the court, both as a coach and as a player and so forth. When you talk, you probably have a certain message. You maybe even ask the people that ask you to speak, like, what do these folks want to hear about? But let me ask you this. What do they really want to hear from you, Matt Doherty?
I think people, and I think this is important for a speaker to talk about stories, because stories stick.
Yeah.
They don't want you to be up there and listing the 3 keys to success, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That can be boring
Yep.
and forgettable. But if you tell a story incorporating those 3 keys, then that becomes magical. So, you talk about, either a funny moment or an intense moment. Sometimes those stories come to you, but most of the times you're planning. And I think with every key point, you want to have a story behind it. And, most people, man, it's a wide variety of topics.
Well, let me ask you this, because I'll take you down that path. In fact, you could leave us with this. Can you think, and I didn't ask you, but I figure you mentioned it enough times in your talks and conversations with friends and so forth. Can you leave us with a story that kind of helps you illustrate a point?
Oh, yeah.
And if you can put the term Bushy McBush in there, that would make it even funnier.
Yeah. No. Are you you got sponsorship with Bushy?
No, I mean, come on. Have you ever heard of anything funnier than that NASCAR race, Bushy McBush? It sounds like an 8th grader made that up. It's hilarious.
No, that sounds like a cousin of mine from the old country in Dingle, actually. Yeah.
It sounds like something funny. How about a story, though? Yeah. You have a 1 or 2 minute story to help you illustrate a certain point that you try to get across?
About putting me on the spot, like a 2 minute, like now you're giving me a time frame, okay? you spent about 25% of this interview talking about Bushy McBush, and now you want some real content from, and you're pinching me for a minute?
I tell you what, brother, I can talk.
All right, hold on. No, it's my interview now. I'm running the show. You know the movie with Tom Hanks, and the guy comes on the ship and says, "I am the captain now."
That's right. Yeah, I saw that movie. That was a great movie. True story.
Yeah, true story. So the pirate gets on the ship. So I'm pirating your show. I am the captain.
Go ahead, sir.
Oh, hey! I am the captain now.
That's right.
All right. So this segment's sponsored by Bushy McBush. I'm Matt Doherty. And I'm going to tell you a quick story about core values. I felt core values were something that were missing, and I learned from my friend, Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Karras, about core values in the military. And I took them to SMU when I coached at SMU. And my core values at the time were 3. I just think you have to have 3 to 4 core values. Anything more than that, you forget.
Sure.
That's why phone numbers are 3 and 4 digits long.
That's right.
You can't remember 7 digits, but you can remember 3 and 4.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. All right. No, I'm not asking for it. That's rhetorical, Dr. John. And Chris, cue up the applause, because at the end of this, I expect a big applause. So, and by the way, we're sponsored by Bushy McBush. So mine were respect, trust, and commitment. I felt that those were the 3 most important. So RTC. I'd write that on everything. I'd put it on the board. I'd, give them medallions or wristbands. I had them sign a stone with RTC on it, and that was their commitment to our core values. So then I had a player who was missing class, and I pulled him into the office. And I said to him, "Hey, I understand you're missing class, and you signed the stone, didn't you?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "So tell me, are you upholding our rule about mandatory class attendance? Mm-hmm. Are you respecting that rule?" And he drops his head and says, "No." I said, I thought you were going to class. I trusted you were going to class, and you're not, so you obviously broke the trust value. And obviously you don't have a commitment to your education. Otherwise you would be going to class. So as the head coach, and I went old school on him, Dr. John, mm-hmm. I went like my parents. I said, "If you were me, what would you do?" And he said, "I'd suspend me." I said, "Okay, you're suspended." And we walked out the door arm in arm. Everything was good, as opposed to getting frustrated and yelling at a kid in front of the team. You get the message across in a much more effective manner that will permeate throughout the organization. This segment by Matt Doherty is sponsored by Bushy McBush. Applause, Chris. Applause.
So, Matt, you're going to agree with me on this one.
No, don't tell me if I'm going to agree with you or not.
Okay, let me say this. You might agree with me on this one. The story's going to have a lot more momentum. It's going to have a lot more meaning if you tell us the name of that student and what school that occurred at.
That was at SMU.
Okay, very good. That half of that is fine. Listen, Matt, that was a great segment, brother. I appreciate you coming on the show. Folks, the book is Rebound from Pain to Passion. And one of the reasons I asked you to come on, Matt Doherty, was because the first time I think it was in a soft cover and as an ebook, but now it's available as a hardcover. Is that correct?
Man, you got to do your research.
Okay.
That's so disappointing.
Okay.
It's not coming out in hardcover. It's not. It's soft cover.
Soft cover.
It's ebook, and eventually it'll be in audio version.
There you go.
Oh, geez.
Chris,
you were doing so well.
I don't actually think in your heart I was doing well, but I thought that was just a way for you to throw me a bone there. But listen.
No, you tried to throw yourself a bone and you choked on it.
All right, listen. It was at the time it was in an ebook. In fact, that's the great part about this being taped. It's going to air a little while from now, and what happened is we'll take that part out, and it'll make me sound like I actually knew what I was talking about. So the first time you're on, it was an ebook. Now it's in paperback, and eventually there's going to be an audio book. And the book is Rebound from Pain to Passion. The author is former college basketball player and college coach Matt Doherty. Matt, thank you for joining us on the show, Faith and Sport, brother.
Yeah, thank you. And Chris, I'm sorry you got such a cross to bear there, man. Sorry about that.
Yeah, he needs some more lessons from you on hosting a show.
Oh, my gosh. He is so heavy.
Thank you, brother. You take care. We'll talk soon, I hope.
All right, see you guys. Thanks.
All right, man. Bye. Well, there you go, folks. I have to admit, Chris, he threw us a couple curveballs there.
Yeah.
I didn't expect some of that stuff, but it was all quite entertaining. That guy's great. No wonder why he. You can see why he was a winner on the court. Why he got asked to coach several, basketball teams. So he gave us a couple of them. SMU was one. University of Notre Dame was another. At University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. I mean, those are some big jobs. And now he's doing some executive coaching, and he's telling people what they need to hear. So that's awesome. So listen, we only got a couple minutes left. Let's do the quick Q&A with Dr. A, and then I promise we're going to get to PGA Golfer of the Week. Go ahead, brother.
The state of Florida will now allow the name, image, and likeness policy to take effect. Will this change the landscape of college sports? Okay. Your thoughts, Dr. Acquaviva.
Very good. So NIL, name, image, and likeness policy, is a state-by-state policy that is supporting the college athlete and allowing them to make money through endorsements. In other words, there's been a lot of complaining over the past couple of decades that college athletes are bringing in a lot of money for the college or the college itself, and this is going to be a way for them to be compensated so they can do endorsements, they can sign deals, be on commercials, write books, and so forth. The question was, will this change the landscape of college sports? I doubt it because of this. There's only so many of those guys. There's only so many people, even in pro sports, that have kind of like the look and the name and maybe the voice to be a spokesman for somebody. I don't think this is going to be as productive as people want, but what I like about it, it's going to give them the opportunity, and just maybe this will kind of, just kind of calm the situation and put the ball in their court to allow them to earn as much money as they can through endorsements. So we'll see what happens with this. By the way, from what I understand, Florida is the first state to allow this, and I think it goes into effect in July. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. All right, brother, that was the quick Q&A with Dr. A. We're going to wrap this show up here in a minute. PGA Golfer of the Week. He is Christian Bezuidenhout.
Bezuidenhout.
Yeah, and the runner-up is Brandt Snedeker. So Brandt Snedeker tied for 11th in this past Valspar Championship, but the winner once again this week is Christian Bezuidenhout. So there you go, folks. In fact, he didn't even golf this past weekend, but still, everybody likes to say or hear the word Bezuidenhout.
Yeah, or whatever happened to awesome golfer names like Chichi Rodriguez?
Well, I know that guy. He was a true character, but because he hasn't been on the tour in a couple decades, he's pretty much a forgotten guy. Now we say names like Bubba Watson,
right,
and some other actually more normal names like Phil Mickelson.
That's right.
And then there's the let's see. Who's another guy? Luis
Jack Nicholas.
Yeah, Jack Nicholas. Yeah, of course, he hasn't been on the tour in a while.
No.
Well, listen, folks, in conclusion here on Faith and Sport, we always like to end with this quote or a quote from a pope. And this one in particular comes from John Paul II, who said, I think this is wonderful. It's why I've grabbed onto this one for so long. Give thanks to God for the gift of sport in which the human person exercises his body, intellect, and will, recognizing these abilities as so many gifts of his creator. Again, from John Paul II. Before we go, I want to give special thanks to Carlos Herrera, our guest in the first half of the show, Coach Matt Doherty, second half of the show guest, and for Chris Pressler for helping us produce this show. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. Please join us next time here on Carolina Catholic Radio and Radio Maria for more Faith and Sport.
You've been listening to Faith and Sport on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network on Carolina Catholic Radio Charlotte, 1270 AM. Also streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. We've also been broadcasting across Radio Maria. We hope you'll tune in again next week for more Faith and Sport on the Radio Maria Radio Network and the Carolina Catholic Radio Network. And in the meantime, check out carolinacatholicradio.org for all of our encore presentation times when you can hear encore presentations of Faith and Sport throughout the week. And also check out Faith and Sport on demand at carolinacatholicradio.org.